My goodness. I'm speechless. I have no idea what to say right now. But I'm going to try to rein myself in here. So this is, without question, in my mind, the best episode of the Book of Boba Fett. Not even close. And I'm trying not to overreact and have a super knee-jerk reaction to this episode, considering I just watched it. But I really want to go as far as to say it's better than any episode of The Mandalorian as well. I was speechless for the majority of this episode. There's surprise after surprise, unexpected appearance after unexpected appearance, and I could not be more surprised, and I could not be happier with what I just saw. Okay, let's just try and dig into things here. So we open up the episode with Cobb Vanth confronting a few Pikes. He kills 3 of them and then he lets the other one go. And then we jump to Din Djarin. I questioned last week whether we were going to get to see Din go to Grogu at all. That interaction isn't quite what we may have expected, but we did get to see it. So we go to the planet from what appears to be the flashbacks in The Last Jedi and The Force Awakens, in which Luke Skywalker trained his new Jedi Order. But the planet looks very different right now. We just see the very early construction of the very first hut at the training academy. So we go here, and Din Djarin, he meets R2-D2, and R2 doesn't take him to Grogu. He takes him to, surprise, surprise, the first unexpected appearance, Ahsoka Tano. Din and Ahsoka have a little bit of a talk, and then Ahsoka takes Din to where he can see Grogu and Luke training, but she asks him not to go give the gift that Din has brought for Grogu to him because it will just make things worse because Grogu is very attached to Din and he misses him a lot. So Din thinks better of it and he gives the gift to Ahsoka. Ahsoka gives the gift to Luke and Luke ends up giving the gift to Grogu. We'll come back to that in a minute. This episode has a lot of training between Luke and Grogu, which was something I did not expect to see at all. Grogu has come a decent way, it seems, in his training, but Luke openly admits to Ahsoka that he doesn't think he's really training Grogu so much as Grogu's just remembering the training that he had prior to Order 66 and the takeover of the Empire, or the Empire's takeover. We have a little flashback where Luke places his hand on Grogu's head, and we see Grogu remembering Order 66. Mind-blowing, very emotional. I was super excited to see that. It's also, there's so many little things in here that are actually big deals, but it's hard to categorize them, and it's so easy to just, brush over them. We had Ahsoka and Luke talking to each other on screen. That's a major deal, and it's it doesn't even feel like that big of a thing as I just brushed over the episode. That's a huge deal, and Ahsoka even mentions how Luke reminds her a lot of his father. Awesome, obviously. But then Din leaves the planet without ever seeing Grogu, and we go back to Tatooine, right? We go back to Mos Espa, and we have Boba Fett and Fennec Shand talking about their plan, and they're not sure that they're going to have enough bodies to fight this war that's coming their way, and Din says he might be able to help with that, and he goes back to Cobb Vanth once again. Cobb says that his people are at peace and they're really not interested in a fight, despite Din's offering and him pointing out that they're going to get dragged into this war eventually, and it's better to get ahead of it and be on the right side. But Cobb declines to join Din at that moment. So Din leaves, and then, surprise, surprise again, maybe the biggest surprise of this episode actually, even though it's one of the faces that we had speculated would show up in this show in the beginning, considering all the faces we had already seen that I didn't think were gonna show up, at least coming into the series, this may have been the biggest one of the entire episode, Cad Bain. Cad Bain shows up, and he is not interested in helping Boba. He is working with the Pikes, and he tells Cobb Vanth to stay out of it and his people will be okay. Cobb doesn't decline that offer, but he doesn't take a great liking to it either. And then they have this standoff, and obviously Cad Bain wins because we all knew Cad Bain was going to win that. I don't know that Cobb Vanth is going to be dead. I don't think Cobb Vanth is dead. I think we will actually see him, and him getting shot is going to actually draw him into this war and give him motivation, him and his people motivation to want to join. So I think that's going to happen, but just predicting, he could be dead. I don't think he is, though. And then the episode flashes back once again to Luke Skywalker and Grogu. Again, wasn't expecting to go back to them, and we do, and Luke offers Grogu this ultimatum. Because, as I mentioned earlier, Ahsoka and Luke are both very well aware of Grogu's conflict, and they're not really sure that Luke should continue to train Grogu. Luke asks Ahsoka what he should do, and Ahsoka says, "Trust your instincts," and then she leaves. So she's not going to help Luke continue to build the Jedi Order as it progresses, and I mean, that's really to be expected. I was surprised that she was there at all. But they leave, and so Luke has to sort of figure out what he's going to do, and then we come to this point where Luke actually reveals Master Yoda's lightsaber, and he offers it to Grogu, but he also offers him Din Djarin's gift, and he says, "You have to choose, you can't have both. So you can go back with the Mandalorian, you can take this armor that he has made for you, or you can take this lightsaber and I will make you a powerful Jedi, and you can choose that path, but you cannot do both, because attachment is not a part of the Jedi way." And Luke tells Grogu, you know, a short time for you is a lifetime for someone else. So if Grogu does choose to go back with Din, you know, Din Djarin's gonna die one day, and Grogu is still gonna be very, very young, considering the way his species ages. And Grogu is very, very conflicted with this decision. And the episode actually ends there, so we don't know what Grogu is ultimately going to choose to do, but we can predict. So I think in this final episode, we are going to really focus on the battle on Tatooine. I think that's going to be the big focal point of this episode. I mean, that's what makes sense, and that's what we've been building toward this entire time. So I think we'll do that. I think we will have Cad Bain on the side with the Pikes, and that's going to be obviously a huge aid for them. I don't know if we'll see anyone else. Maybe we'll see Bosk or some other bounty hunters come along. That would be very interesting, obviously. And maybe we'll see some other people join Boba's side as well. This is going to be a very, very interesting battle, but what I could see happening, and I'm not saying that it's going to happen, obviously, no one knows what's going to happen here, but I could see Boba's side losing this battle, and then toward the end of the episode, I could see Grogu showing up to sort of save the day. Maybe he appears with Luke Skywalker, maybe he appears alone somehow, maybe him and Ahsoka show up, whether separately or together, maybe all three of them show up. I really don't know, but I'm not putting anything past them at this point because I am so mind blown by what they just did in this episode. But I could definitely see Grogu showing up and joining this battle, and just based on the little bit of his training that he's been able to tap back into and unlock, he could potentially shift the tide somewhat. Obviously, bringing Luke and or Ahsoka into it would obviously make a massive difference and really tip the scales in their favor, in Boba Fett's favor. I think it would be a little bit weird for Luke and Ahsoka to just openly join Boba Fett, but joining Din Djarin, you know, joining the cause for him could potentially make sense, because they are the keepers of peace in the galaxy, and not only that, but Tatooine is also Luke Skywalker's home planet, so he would want to keep peace there as well. I mean, that could make sense. I think it would feel, or it could potentially feel a little bit repetitive for Luke to come up and be the big savior in this, just as he was in the conclusion of The Mandalorian, but I don't think anybody would complain too much about that. Obviously, the circumstances of the battle would be much different. Luke would want to have some weight in this dispute that's going on his own home planet, but you know, we really don't know. I think it's most likely if any of them were to come to this battle, it would just be Grogu alone, or potentially none of them could show up. We could have this sort of be a thing where they planted the seed for Grogu to come back to Din at some point, but he doesn't show up in this battle, and this thing on Tatooine is just going to be what it is, and there's going to be no Jedi intervention. That's very possible too. And it's also possible that Grogu will choose the other path, and he will take this lightsaber and he will continue his Jedi training. If I had to choose, I don't think that's going to happen because of the things that we have talked about before. It doesn't really make sense for Grogu to be at Luke Skywalker's training temple years down the road with Ben Solo, and as we get closer to Ben's fall to the dark side, we've never seen any indication that Grogu was there, so I don't think Grogu's going to have anything to do with that time period in Luke's Jedi temple. So I think Grogu's going to leave at some point, so I'd be surprised if he does choose the lightsaber, but if he does, then that's another very interesting story that we can look forward to seeing more and more of in the future. I also want to take a second and just acknowledge what a great job this show is doing of starting to really shift the tide and tie in with these events that we know happened way down the road with the sequel trilogy. I'm not saying that Mandalorian and Boba and Ahsoka are going to tie in super heavily with the sequels, but we are at least seeing the story sort of develop and grow into that time period a little bit. So that's really, really cool. I think seeing the early makings of Luke's Jedi training temple is super awesome. I was so blown away by that. And really, I was just so enamored with this entire episode. But I am going to go ahead and wrap this video up here. So thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know what you guys thought about this episode and what your predictions are for the Book of Boba Fett. If you enjoyed this video, please remember to drop a thumbs up to support the channel. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. And of course, may the Force be with you always.